Executive Director, of the Liquor Control Liquor Control Commission for Oregon State. And today we've been talking a little bit about cannabis and hemp, and then how it's been progressing through the regulatory system. And right now, we want to talk a little bit more about the tracking of that. And as you discussed in an earlier segment, we were talking about the safety issues that really came out as a part of that.
Yes.
And the good things that you thought about taking out illegal drugs, Schedule 1, making sure there. But now, we've got tracking for safety purposes because people are ingesting this, they're putting it on their bodies and smoking it or whatever they're doing that is going to actually could cause health issues. So tell us a little bit about how that's going and what you see as benefits and challenges.
Well, when we put our testing scheme into place, right? There wasn't an advanced science around how you test cannabis, what you test for, and not a lot of research about its effects with the human
Six
body.
guys in a room going, that's really good, man.
It makes it really difficult when you're dealing with medical professionals and public health professionals to say, we don't have the research, but you're telling us you're going to put in place a standard for something that we don't know what's safe and what's not safe. So, it really became a public policy exercise in looking at the kind of risks that people were willing to assume, and a public agency was able to identify, right?
But we also had experience, from a public agency, as from agricultural, with the chemicals and all those kinds of things. So you can take that, right?
But they tend to have much more extensive research done before you make those decisions about the risk. In this case, what you knew is you had a bunch of users that had used the products in these ways without other standards. We knew a lot about how other products are tested, what you look for, and what we could move over. But we really don't know directly on the cannabis side what those, safe limits are. So it's a risk-based kind of work that you need to do, and it's a difficult work when you're doing it with the professionals that are used to applying standards because they want to rely on data and information, which makes it nice when you have things like a commission to be able to take those things into consideration.
Well, imagine I'm a guy out in the middle of nowhere and I don't know much about anything, but I'm thinking, they test tomatoes for that kind of stuff, and they test my carrots, and they test the food that I eat. So wouldn't that kind of similarly be the fertilizers that they put in those things, or the contents of herbicides, or whatever the case may be?
Yeah,
you've had that experience.
I can't tell you how many times I've heard that tomato analogy.
Back in the day when people grew tomatoes in your back room,
and it really became, what was it? Because it doesn't translate over. You don't smoke a tomato.
But you can eat it.
Yeah, there's differences. So the pesticide tolerances that they think about are different. And then you think about, you get flour, but how you do these concentrates and these extracts, and when you look at that, and when you do a concentrate or an extract, it extracts pesticides.
A lot of stuff,
It concentrates pesticides. And
even more so.
So the testing became sort of, what's the methodology? How do you draw an accurate test out of that sticky goo? Right?
Describe what you came up with right now. What does it look like today in the marketplace?
Well, today, we mainly test for pesticides, several types, and then we test for water activity. That's, the primary sort of
water activity. I don't know what that means.
Water activity is really how much water or moisture is in the plant. It's really indicative of the opportunity for mold. So the drier it is, you got less mold.
Yeah.
And things that tend to be wet marijuana tend, to be extracted
more moist.
Yeah. So it gives you an idea about how cured it is and what that is. So we have a water activity standard, and you want to see it drier if it's going into flour, so it doesn't.
When it gets packaged, then it doesn't mold inside the package.
And if you're testing for molds, there's so many types of mold. It's not just mold, right? It's all of these types of mold.
And to connect the dots from our prior segment, and you started off this segment talking about public safety. So there's not only the quality assurance, quality control, but there's the safety in terms of traceability and the ability to recall a damaged product.
And we've used recalls through our system. It's been fantastic.
Have you ever had any stories about that right now?
We had actually. We've had 2 or 3 instances. One of them really wasn't about the marijuana itself. It was used in a food product, and the food was contaminated. But because it was traced and part of the marijuana product, the retailer voluntarily worked with us to get that product recalled and took it all back in. It's worked extremely well in the cases where we've had test results that have been. We had one mislabeled test result. I think we had to pull that back. Something that should have failed got in. And
So how often do they have to test their products? Is it every batch?
Every batch, yeah. We test the batches about 30 pounds and 10 pounds initially when we started. We've been moving it because tests are very expensive, and so it's not only it's the batch, the size,
Testing
the
centers
amount
like
utilized, tests, yeah, they like that a lot, and that was part of the debate is how much do they like it because they wanted a lot of different testing.
Right.
And we've come down. It's how you regiment that test that's affordable so you can get the product to market, yet covers the primary safety issues for the public. That's still something that I think, I think at one time we were the best of the best
Well, lastly
in
on
testing and practices, and those are changing, right? Practices and best practices are evolving and moving, and we'll keep moving this system forward to protect.
Before we end this
public
segment,
safety.
I want to make sure that we talk about the big reason you started tracking to begin with. We went into the safety because that seemed to be the thing that really evolved out of it.
Yeah.
But what about the illegal activity? Has there been much of that we had to worry about, or have you been able to pretty much rope it down?
Well, that's a difficult question because in Oregon we had a prolific, more than anywhere in the country that's had to do this. We had really outdoor grow-based marijuana culture here. We had medical around for a long time. We had sharing directly to patients, very loose controls around that, and a lot of federal lands where people grew illegally over time. 52% of Oregon's public lands.
So you're still working on it?
Yeah. We're working on it, but I can't say that things have changed markedly.
Okay.
What I can say about the legal system is we haven't seen a lot of incidents of diversion or direct illegality. Now, we haven't enforced all the way. Maybe our regiment hasn't been up and we're not seeing it.
You're learning as you go along,
and
though,
we're
too.
looking and finding. But I can't say we've really seen a change.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, Daryl Bowman with the 411 on 420.
Harry Brailsford.
We'll be right back after these short messages.